The New York Islanders have signed a top six forward as a free agent. It's at reasonable terms, and the player has played for Patrick Roy before. We've got all that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long during the offseason. That's hirings, firings, free agency, the draft, and trade rumors. And we've got a little bit of almost all of those things on today's show. And it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So the big news, and there was a lot of news today. Today was the start of, or Monday was the start of NHL free agency. And to the surprise of many people, the Islanders actually made a couple of moves. The big move was the signing of free agent forward Anthony Duclair. Duclair inking, according to cap friendly, because remember, the Islanders never actually include, release the details of the contracts that they sign with any player or coach or front office person. But Anthony Duclair, according to cap friendly, signs a 4-year, $14 million deal with the New York Islanders. That is $3.5 million per year AAV. So that's the cap hit. And to be honest with you, this is a solid deal for the New York Islanders. And look, I am not going to sit here and say that Anthony Duclair takes the Islanders from a fringe playoff team to a top Stanley Cup contender. He doesn't. But does he make this team better this year? Absolutely. Everydayers, you've heard me say time and time again that this team needs to add 2 top 6 forwards, ideally, in order to get its offense and power play closer to where we want it to be. Well, they added 1, and maybe, again, the key word here is maybe, they have already added another if you basically count the addition of Siplakov, who the Islanders signed earlier in the offseason. If you put him in the equation, then all of a sudden you're talking about a team that, would have 2 new top 6 forwards. Now, whether or not Siplakov pans out at the NHL level after playing well in the KHL, that remains to be seen. But Duclair, he is a player who adds experience, but he is also still in his prime, 28 years old. And they sign him to a 4-year deal that takes him through the age of 32, maybe 33, since he will actually turn 29 next month, end of August. But still, you are getting the rest of his prime before he really starts to slow down. He's been in the league for 10 years. His career high in goals, 31 in 74 games for the Florida Panthers in 2020, 2021. He has gone over 20 goals also in 2015, 2016 with Arizona. And this past year, 24 goals in 73 games in time split between San Jose and Tampa Bay. In 10 years, he has already played for Arizona, Florida, Ottawa, the Rangers, the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, the Sharks, and the Lightning. And now you're going to add the Islanders to that list. Basically speaking, the stability of having a 4-year deal with the Islanders is definitely part of the reason he was willing to take a little less money in order to sign with the New York Islanders. Now, we do not know if there is a modified no-trade clause or a no-trade clause attached to this deal. Those details have not yet been divulged, but essentially you're getting a Bonafide second-line, top six forward who can give you 20 to 25 goals, maybe even more with the right chemistry for the price you want to pay a third line winger at $3.5 million per year. Compare that to Anders Lee, who is now clearly a bottom six forward at this stage in his career and is earning double what Anthony Duclair is earning, and it is very, very unlikely that Lee would match Duclair's productivity if they both stay healthy and both play the same number of games. Again, J.G. Pageau, third line center, earning $5 million a year. That's significantly more than Anthony Duclair, and yet you're going to get a lot more offensive productivity out of Duclair. And the scouting report on Anthony Duclair talks about his game maturing in recent years. He is fast, so he definitely adds the speed that the Islanders have been needing in their lineup. He's fast on his skates, has a quick release, and can play either wing. He has a left-handed shot, but he can play left wing. He could play right wing. He is capable of creating his own shot or setting up teammates. Great hands, and has gotten stronger as he has progressed in the NHL. His play away from the puck is getting better with each passing season. And look, no illusions here. Anthony Duclair was not signed for his defense, okay? But keep this in mind, that last year in 56 games with San Jose, who had one of the worst goal differentials in league history, he was only a -12. And then when he went to Tampa Bay for 17 games, he was a +4. So I don't think we're going to see a defensive liability. He's not great defensively, but he can be responsible defensively, and that is certainly welcome. And then you add this. There is no doubt that Patrick Waugh was one of the big reasons that Anthony Duclair signed with the New York Islanders. Here's the quote he gave to the media Monday after his signing. When you have a coach that wants you, that's all you want. And he said that the fact that Waugh was behind the bench for the Islanders was a huge factor in his decision to sign with the team. Now, he played for the Quebec Remparts in the Quebec Junior League under Patrick Waugh and scored 116 points in 118 games between 2011 and 2013. He basically said, my job is to bring speed and offense. Looking at the roster, we have good players up front and a lot of skill. I look forward to amplifying that forward group. He has also played in the past with J.G. Pageau. They played together for Ottawa during one season, and they even killed penalties together because of his speed, Duclair can indeed kill penalties, even though he may not be the soundest defensive player out there. But you know what? The Islanders' penalty kill certainly needed a boost, and trying Duclair there and maybe, having his chemistry with J.G. Pageau may very well improve the Islanders' PK. Got nowhere to go but up, right? But overall, given the limitations the Islanders had with cap space, given the problems that this team had and still has, I mean, officially or unofficially, I guess, but according to Cap Friendly, the Islanders have $1,062,500 of available cap space right now. And that does not include re-signing Simon Holmstrom, Ruslan Ishkakov, and Oliver Wahlstrom, all of whom are restricted free agents. Yeah, you could throw in Dennis Chalowski, although he'll almost certainly be headed down to the AHL again. But, the Islanders' cap space is small or non-existent. And yet, Lou Lamoriello was able to add an important top six forward to get this team younger, faster, and more skilled. So, overall, Lou Lamoriello kind of created the limitations that the Islanders have right now with the cap space, but he also did very well given those limitations to add to the roster. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Anthony Duclair. We're going to talk about another signing that the Islanders made. They brought in a new coach. They also, we know the first two games of the Islanders season. So a lot of stuff happening today. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, a center who is pretty darn good on the second power play unit and was with the Islanders in the very late 2000s and very early 2000 teens. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Met fan, Yankee fan, maybe you want to bet on tonight's game or who's going to hit a home run, who's going to be the winning pitcher. You could certainly look at football futures, hockey futures, lots of, there's golf, there's tennis this summer, lots of things to bet on at FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Duclair is a Bonafide, in my mind, second-line winger. And, I mean, on a good team, that's where you put him. But because he has enough speed, he'll keep up with Matthew Barzal, should be effective there. And if he can develop chemistry with Barzy and Bo, I expect him to play on the top line, and I would hope he will give the Islanders somewhere between 50 and 55 points. You give me 25 goals and 25 assists minimum, maybe 22 and 28, whatever it is. Get me to 50 points. 55 is really good, and 60 would be ideal. You give me that for $3.5 million a year for 4 years, I am very happy with that. And look, it means that the Islanders now have a forward who, while ideally not a first line guy, can play on that first line without hurting the Islanders. Look, no offense to the guys who played on the first line last year. They were not top 6 forwards. Hudson Fasching, who I am a fan of, not a top 6 forward at this stage in his NHL career. Casey Cizikas, not a top line forward, not a top 6 forward. He filled in admirably in a pinch, but he is not the guy you want on your top line. Pierre Engvall, not a top line guy, really not a top 6 guy. The Islanders have tried him there. Other than his initial run right after being traded, he has not really proven himself to be top 6 Tinder. Anders Lee at this stage in his career, really not a top 6 guy anymore. So to me, you now have a top 6 guy legitimately. And assuming Kyle Palmieri does not slow down, get hurt, whatever, you've got 5 top 6 forwards on this roster. And if Tsiplakov can come in and become the 6th, again, is it elite? No. Are the Islanders suddenly one of the 5 best teams in the Eastern Conference or, a top cup contender? No, but they're better than they were a week ago. And that, to me, is something that Lou Lamoriello was able to do without breaking the bank, without having to buy anyone out and take on a cap hit later. Now, there are limitations as a result of this. As I mentioned, the Islanders barely have $1 million worth of cap space. To me, this tells me they are unlikely to sign Oliver Wahlstrom, or if they sign him, they will then trade him. They are probably not going to sign Ruslan Ishkakov, and if they do, he may be headed to Bridgeport again, or they could trade him. They'll probably re-sign Simon Holmstrom for most of that $1 million cap space that's left, and it tells me that barring a trade where you move out some cap space, Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, not coming back to the New York Islanders next year. Sebastian Aho, probably not coming back unless Lou Lamoriello moves out some money. And he probably will have to move out some money anyway because there'll be no depth unless someone goes on LTIR. You just won't have the ability to call someone up from Bridgeport, even at this minimum salary, and have them added to the lineup unless someone is on LTIR, if everything stays the way it is right now. So again, any of this could change at any time, but as of right now, it looks like this is the team that the Islanders are going with, and hopefully Duclair helps the power play. He can help the PK. He can help the first line. Can Bo and Barzy with Duclair on their line take it up a notch and maybe be even better than they were this past year when, Barzy was a point-a-game guy. Bo Horvat scored more than 30 goals. I think it is possible if indeed they do develop chemistry. So we'll see whether or not, that ends up happening. But I think overall, this was a solid move by Lou Lamoriello and by the New York Islanders. Meanwhile, the Islanders also announced that they have re-signed defenseman Mike Reilly. And Reilly signs a 1-year deal with the Islanders. And that deal is essentially, according to Cap Friendly, a 1-year, $1.25 million deal. I like this. Reilly was solid in his role, second power play unit, third defensive pairing, gives you a little skating ability. Again, I think it'll be either him or Samuel Bolduc battling for that final left defense spot, assuming everybody else stays healthy and stays in the lineup, because you have Pelech and Romanov on the left side as your top two. But again, I like the idea. There's no long-term commitment here for either player, and you're basically helping the team with some of the things they need help with. So liking that move by Lou Lamoriello as well. And I think it's, again, a small step in the right direction for the New York Islanders to be adding these players at this time. And do I expect any other signings? I've heard rumors, Shane Pinto, Long Island native. Islanders are kind of looking into that. Nothing, and I do mean literally nothing, can happen unless the Islanders move out some salary. So, yeah, they could trade for somebody, but somebody's got to be moved out in order to get somebody moved in. Now, keep in mind, during the offseason, you can exceed the salary cap by up to 10%. But before the season actually starts, you got to be back down and under the cap. So there is a small amount of flexibility, and it gives Lou time, even as late as training camp or the end of the exhibition season, put a guy on waivers, make a trade, find somebody, maybe you add a late round draft pick, or you just get future considerations. Whatever it is, there are still a couple of moves that can be made and time to make them. But if you're talking about a major addition, unless there's a major subtraction, we're not going to see that this offseason. All right, more to get to on today's show. The Islanders did hire a new assistant coach, which they had promised. And we also know the first two games of their schedule this year. We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local experts, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So, we mentioned on yesterday's show, Everydayers know, that Doug Houda will not be back with the New York Islanders. So he is now history as far as his present tenure with the Islanders. Well, the first thing the Islanders announced early on Monday morning was that Tommy Albelin has now been hired as an assistant coach. So it'll be Patrick Roy as the head coach, John McClain, Tommy Albelin, and Benoit DeRosier. Those are your three assistant coaches. Now, for the last 8-9 years, Albelin has been working as a coach with the Swiss national team. He was an assistant at the World Championships, the World Junior Championships, and at the Olympics. He also spent 8 seasons in the Devils organization as an assistant, both with the big club and with their farm club at that time, which was the Albany River Rats. I think it should come as no surprise to anybody that Albelin spent a lot of time. He played 18 seasons in the NHL, and a lot of that time was spent with the New Jersey Devils, 12 of those seasons, and all of them took place while Lou Lamoriello was, of course, the general manager. So overall, the New York Islanders are bringing in a new assistant coach. And look, hopefully, here's a guy who can improve what this team is doing on the PK, what this team is doing defensively, and can work with Patrick Roy to make the Islanders give up fewer than the 35-40 shots a game they were giving up too often early and midway through last season. And again, let's just get the penalty kill up to the middle of the pack. It doesn't have to be top 5 or top 10, but get me to 14 or 15 or 16. something around there. I mean, more than that, better than that is certainly welcomed and great, but not so, not essential. But you can't be 32nd out of 32 teams and be historically top 10 all-time bad on the PK. So good luck to Tommy Albelin, Lou hiring another one of quote-unquote his guys, and let's hope he, Wah, and company work well together and help this team improve. Now, the NHL also announced the home opener for all 32 teams. The full schedule will come out on Tuesday, today, but as of now, we know the first two games of the Islanders season. The season will open October 10th when the Islanders host the Utah Hockey Club. That'll be the first game of the season for the Islanders. It will not be, however, the first game all time for Utah since they moved from Arizona, where they were the Coyotes. The Utah Hockey Club will host the Blackhawks 2 days prior on October 8th. Now, the second game for the Islanders will be on October 12th. They will head to Dallas and be the opponent for the Dallas Stars home opener. So, mark your calendars. October 10th, Islanders regular season hockey resumes. October 12th, first road game of the year. And we are both, looking forward to both of those games as we get closer. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. We are a day late on this, but Monday was the 38th birthday of former Islanders center Rob Schremp, native of Fulton, New York, 5'10", 185 pounds. First round pick of the Oilers back in 2004. Made his NHL debut with Edmonton in 06-07, but never really established himself as an everyday player. Joined the Islanders for the 2009-2010 season. Had 7 goals, 25 points in 44 games. That year came back the following year, 10 goals, 22 points in 45 games. Moved on the following year in 2010-2011. Was dealt to the Atlanta Thrashers and then played a lot in Europe before his professional hockey career ended after the 2017-2018 season. Schremp had good speed, was part of the Islanders' second power play unit, could pass. Defense wasn't necessarily his strong point. Only played 114 career NHL games, 20 goals, 54 points, 26 penalty minutes. Did not appear in any playoff games in his NHL career. One of his better games as an Islander, though, January 12th, 2010, at the Old Barn, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Islanders hosting the Red Wings. Jimmy Howard, the goalie for the Red Wings. Chris Osgood, the former Islander, also played. And the Islanders had Dwayne Rollason. But in this game, with the score 1-0 Islanders, Rob Schremp, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores late in the first period, assisted by Bruno Gervais, and then early in the second period, an unassisted goal, a 2-goal night for Schremp. Islanders come away with a 6-0 victory, a 16-save shutout for Dwayne Rollason. For Rob Schremp, our Islanders' birthday of the day, 2 goals, he's a +2, and he scored on both of his shots while playing 13 minutes and 21 seconds. Islanders, again, shutting out the Red Wings 6-0 before a crowd of 12,254 at the Coliseum. Look, let's be simple here. Again, I don't think these moves make the Islanders an elite hockey team. But given the restrictions that Lou Lamoriello had, he did an admirable job of adding speed, skill, and getting this team a little bit younger, bringing back a useful role player. Did not give either one of these guys that dreaded 7-year deal for too much money with the no-trade clause that has hampered this team's ability to improve so long. So overall, I think Lou Lamoriello did a judicious job and we'll see whether or not this team is good enough to make the playoffs. And if they do make the playoffs, whether or not it is before game 80, 81, or 82. Have they made themselves better? Yes. Have other teams around the Eastern Conference in the division also made themselves better this offseason? Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how much better the Islanders get and what they're able to do in the coming season. But look, we're going to discuss all the draft picks, all the permutations of this all throughout the next few weeks. So lots to discuss here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Tomorrow on the show, we'll talk a little bit more about Anthony Duclair, what he'll do, what he won't do, where he'll fit in, and what it means for some of these other players on the Islanders roster. We'll have all that and more coming up tomorrow. So until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.